All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to move on to the second step of our mask today. So you need everybody to look up. Thank you. And make sure that you are somewhere where you can see my demonstration. All right, so your mask probably looks something like this. And you might have some wiggly spots. You might have some rough edges. And we're going to deal with all of that today. So the first thing would be the rough edges. I do have some scissors that I call the old scissors, and they're the metal ones. And these are the ones that we're going to use for this project. I would like to make sure that all of these scraps and little bits of plaster end up in the garbage. So either stand next to the garbage can or bring it over near you. And you can use these scissors to trim around your mask. You don't want to overcut because we don't want to change the integrity of the mask. But anywhere that may have been a mistake or you want to clean up, that's how we're going to do it, okay? So we're going to use these scissors from that bucket into the trash can. And there's several trash cans around the room. Next step would be to decide whether or not you want an extension on your mask. So do you want to add something other than just the plaster? If you do, we have pieces of cardboard that I've cut into squares for you. They're over next to all of our supplies. And I have X-Acto knives on my desk. They are numbered. I need you to write your name and the number you took on the board when you take it, so we can keep track of where these are. So when we're using an X-Acto knife, they are sharp, and we want to be careful not to cut ourselves. I like to use an X-Acto knife standing up because it seems to give me a little bit more control. I also always use a mat to cut on. The mats are on that wooden rack over there. And they are blue on one side, gray on the other. It does not matter which side you use, but you need to make sure you're using one if you're using one of these knives. So like I said, I stand while I'm cutting. And if you'd like to make a pencil mark or pen mark of what your actual cut is going to be, you can do that. Sometimes I'll sort of lay my mask on the cardboard. And I'll take a pen or pencil, and I'll give myself some guidelines so I know that this is the curve that I'm working with. But I want to make maybe some petals that come out. So I'm just going to lightly draw in the shape, standing, holding the cardboard with one hand, cutting in one movement, and you don't want to cut necessarily towards yourself or towards your fingers. If you need help with this, I will help you. So oftentimes I'll sort of cut out the bigger piece, and then I'll go in for the details. And again, I'm cutting away from myself. That is important. Okay, so you see the difference between cutting like this and then cutting where you're here and you're like this and you have your fingers in the way. Okay, you don't want to see this version. I want to see the standing version, cutting away. So once I have my piece, I need to attach it to the mask. Hot glue works well for this. I do have lots of hot glue guns, and they are in a bin. They're going to be on that side of the room, and I have them plugged in. So I'm just going to go over there and hot glue this real quick. You don't need a lot of glue, but you need to make sure that you have enough so that it saturates the plaster. And like all glue, we usually put the glue on the smaller piece first. Hot glue is hot. Don't put your fingers in it. It takes a minute to cool. So as it's cooling, I'm pressing down the cardboard, but I don't have my fingers in the glue. Okay, that's an important part about hot glue. Okay, so now that I have this attached, I need to do some more plaster strips. So I'm going to take my plaster strips again, just like I did for my mask, and do the massaging so that I'm activating the plaster, and I'm covering and wrapping my cardboard. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get it to attach back to the dried plaster. So to do that, I take my finger and I smooth with water until those little holes are filled. If you have somewhere that is wiggly, it may need a second coat of plaster. So this might be a good time to take my plaster strip and wrap it around that wiggly area. So if I have a spot that's wiggly or bendy, I can take my plaster strip and wrap it around so I have a nice clear, clean edge, and when it hardens or dries, it won't be wiggly anymore. You do want to make sure, again, that you're using water to smooth the plaster. And it should look something like this. Questions on the steps to this point? No? Good. All right, so what happens if you do not want to attach anything and you're ready to sort of finish your mask? We are using plaster, Paris, to make the finish on our mask. So I will mix up the plaster for you when you are ready. You just need to ask me. To do that, there is a bin over by the sink, and I mix a little bit of plaster with water. And I mix it until I get kind of a milkshake consistency, like a thick milkshake. And this could be something that you share with someone at your table. So I will mix it up for you. And it'll look something like this. Now I want to make sure that I am working on top of some newspaper, so the stuff will get messy. Now we're going to pretend like I have covered the entire thing with the plaster strips. So applying the plaster, the liquid plaster, just involves smoothing until you get a nice finish. So you want to cover up any of those holes or divots in the mask. It'll kind of seem like it's dried once it hits the plaster craft, but you can still manipulate it. One way to smooth once it's on your mask is just to take a little bit of water and go over the top. That'll give you a really nice finish. Okay? So once you're done with the liquid plaster step, this will take overnight to dry, and then you can paint. Okay? So you should know now all the steps to get to the point where you're ready to paint. Questions on any of that? All right, you can get started.